I smiled politely. I really must go. My real estate agent is waiting. Real estate agent? Amanda scoffed. What are you looking at? Studio apartments in the bad part of town. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Patricia shot me a warning look and hurried to answer it. I followed the group into the grand foyer, where a poised woman in a sharp suit stood waiting. Good morning, Mrs. Miller, she said warmly, addressing me directly. The mansion is ready for your final inspection. The room fell silent. Patricia's carefully maintained smile froze in place. There must be some mistake, she said with a forced laugh. Emma isn't. Emma Miller, I confirmed, stepping forward, owner of the mansion next door. Amanda's mimosa glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Impossible, she exclaimed. I handled that sale through my shell corporation. Yes, I replied pleasantly, and I believe your commission check was quite substantial. James stared at me, his coffee cup frozen halfway to his mouth. Emma, what's going on? Perhaps we should all sit down, I suggested, gesturing to the living room. I have quite a story to tell. Once everyone was seated, Patricia and Amanda perched on the edges of their seats like birds ready to flee. I began. 7 years ago, I developed a financial algorithm that sold for $75 million. I said calmly. Since then, my investments have multiplied many times over. The mansion next door is just one of the properties I own. But you let us think, Patricia sputtered, that I was the cleaning lady's daughter who married a buffoon. I finished. Yes, I did. And you all showed me exactly who you are through how you treated someone you thought was beneath you. This is absurd. Amanda stood abruptly, her face flushed. Mother, she's clearly lying. The real estate agent cleared her throat. I can assure you, Mrs. Henderson, that Mrs. Miller's credentials are impeccable. In fact, she owns controlling interest in the development company that built this entire neighborhood. Patricia's face drained of color. The entire neighborhood, she repeated weakly, including this house? I nodded. I bought it last month when it was still under your late husband's estate. The paperwork was finalized yesterday. The silence was deafening. James sank into his chair, his face a mix of shock and dawning realization. You mean, Patricia's voice trembled, this isn't my house anymore? It's mine, I said simply, just like the basement where you made me sleep last night. Amanda jumped up. Mother, she can't do this. We'll fight it in court. You're welcome to try, I replied, but my lawyers have ensured everything is perfectly legal. For now, I'd like you both to leave my house. Leave? Patricia gasped. But where will I go? This is my home. Was your home, I corrected. Don't worry, I've arranged temporary accommodations for you. There's a modest apartment available in the building where my parents once worked as janitors. I hear the basement unit is particularly cozy. The room erupted into whispers. Relatives exchanged glances, some shocked, others secretly pleased to see Patricia's pride crumble. James finally found his voice. Emma, why didn't you tell me? He asked quietly. I turned to him. Would it have made a difference? Would you have stood up to your mother's treatment of me if you'd known I was wealthy? Because if money is what it takes to earn respect in this family, then we have bigger problems than where I sleep. The real estate agent stepped forward. Mrs. Miller, shall we proceed with the inspection? Yes, I said, rising to my feet. Patricia, I'll have my staff help you pack. You have until tomorrow evening to vacate the premises. As I walked toward the door, Patricia's voice rang out, honeyed and pleading. Emma, dear, surely we can discuss this. We're family, after all. I paused, turning back to face her. Family? I echoed. Last Christmas, you seated me at the children's table because you said I wouldn't know how to behave with the adults. Last month, You accidentally excluded me from James's birthday celebration. And yesterday, you made me sleep in the basement because you said I wasn't good enough for a proper room. I didn't mean, she stammered. Yes, you did. I interrupted firmly. Every slight, every insult, every attempt to humiliate me, you meant it all. You showed me who you are, Patricia. Now, I'm showing you who I am. The sound of my heels clicking on the marble floor echoed through the silent house as I left. Head held high. Behind me, I could hear Patricia's sobs and Amanda's angry protests, but I didn't look back. I've always believed that true character reveals itself in how people treat those they think can't benefit them. My name is Emma Miller, and life taught me how true that belief is. Growing up, my parents instilled in me the values of hard work and humility. My father worked as a janitor at a prestigious tech company, while my mother cleaned houses for wealthy families. They sacrificed endlessly to provide me with an education, often going without so I could have what I needed. Emma, sweetheart, my mother would say, her hands rough from years of scrubbing, knowledge is the one thing nobody can take from you. Her words echoed in my mind as I worked my way through college, studying finance and computer science. By day, I attended classes. By night, I cleaned offices just like my father. What kept me going was a secret project I nurtured in quiet determination, a revolutionary financial algorithm that could predict market trends with unprecedented accuracy. During my final year, while others partied, I refined my program. Then, one ordinary Tuesday, everything changed. My algorithm caught the attention of a major investment firm. They offered me $75 million for it and a position on their board. I accepted, but I kept my wealth hidden, living modestly and growing my fortune quietly through investments. That's when I met James. We crossed paths in a small cafe where I was working on my laptop. He accidentally spilled coffee across the table, barely missing my computer. "Oh, God, I'm so sorry," he said, frantically grabbing napkins. His genuine distress made me laugh. "It's okay," I assured him, helping clean up. "I'm Emma." "James," he replied. "Please, let me buy you another coffee." "It's the least I can do." One coffee turned into dinner, and dinner turned into more. James was kind, funny, and refreshingly down-to-earth. He worked as a high school teacher, passionate about shaping young lives. 6 months later, when he proposed, I didn't hesitate to say yes. That's when I met his family. His mother, Patricia, lived in a sprawling home in an upscale neighborhood. From our first meeting, she made it clear I wasn't what she'd envisioned for her son. "A cleaner's daughter," she said, eyeing me over her wine glass. "How quaint." "James, darling, I thought you were dating that lovely doctor's daughter, Caroline." "Mom," James warned, but the tone was set. At every family gathering, Patricia found ways to remind me of my place. She'd ask me to help the catering staff, claiming I'd feel more comfortable in the kitchen. When James defended me, she'd laugh it off as just trying to make Emma feel at home. Her daughter, Amanda, wasn't much better. A successful real estate agent, Amanda delighted in flaunting her wealth and reminding me of my humble beginnings. "Emma, dear," she'd say with a syrupy smile, "I have clients looking for cleaning services. Should I give them your mother's number?" I endured their barbs silently, partly because I knew the truth about my financial status and partly because I wanted to see their true colors. James, though kind, rarely stood up to them, offering quiet apologies that did little to soften the sting. What they didn't know was that I'd been quietly buying properties across the city, including the mansion next door to Patricia's home. Through a series of shell companies, I acquired it for $12 million, fully furnishing it to my taste. The annual family reunion was approaching, and Patricia insisted we stay at her home. "James, honey," she announced at dinner, "I've arranged the guest rooms. You'll stay in your old room, of course. Emma can use the basement." Mom, James began, shifting uncomfortably. As my daughter-in-law, Patricia cut in smoothly, she should be grateful for whatever accommodations she gets. With her background, she's probably used to worse. I simply smiled. The basement will be fine, Patricia. If only she knew what was coming. The reunion began that Friday. I spent the day carrying luggage, serving drinks, and enduring snide remarks. That evening, while others enjoyed their luxurious rooms, I retired to the cold, musty basement. Laughter floated down through the vents, Patricia's voice cutting through clearly. "Can you believe she actually took the basement without complaint?" she said. I told James he should have married Caroline. At least she knows how to carry herself in proper society. More laughter followed. I checked my phone. A message from my property manager popped up. "Everything is ready for tomorrow's inspection, Mrs. Miller. The mansion next door has been fully furnished according to your specifications." I smiled. Tomorrow would be unforgettable. "I wanted to let you know what's happened since you left," James began, sitting up straighter. "I resigned from my teaching position at Brighton Prep." I blinked, caught off guard. James had spent years teaching at the prestigious private school. "I've taken a job at Riverside High," he continued. "It's in the neighborhood where you grew up. The kids there remind me of you, brilliant, determined, just needing someone to believe in them." "And your mother?" I asked cautiously. He hesitated before answering. "I haven't spoken to her since she moved out. She and Amanda have been trying to rally the family against you, but it backfired. Cousin Sarah came forward about how Mom treated her for marrying beneath her station, and then Uncle Robert shared stories about her behavior toward his second wife. It's like your courage to stand up to her gave others permission to speak their truth." I absorbed this quietly, noting how different James seemed, more grounded, more present. "There's more," he said, his voice softening. "I've been volunteering at the community center where your mom used to work. Did you know they have a program teaching financial literacy to cleaning staff and janitors? I've been helping them expand it." "Why are you telling me this, James?" He met my eyes. "Because I want to earn back your respect," he said simply. "Not because you're wealthy, but because you're the same incredible woman who stayed up helping me grade papers and made soup when I was sick. I was too weak to deserve you before. I want to become someone who does." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a message from Patricia. "Your mother-in-law is here at the apartment building. She's demanding to speak with you." "You don't have to go," James said quickly. "Actually," I replied, standing, "I think I do." I found Patricia in the basement apartment where she now lived, her designer outfit jarringly out of place against the concrete walls. "Hello, Patricia." She turned, and I was struck by how much she had changed. The carefully crafted facade was gone, leaving only vulnerability. "Emma," she began, faltering. After a moment, she whispered, "I understand now." "Understand what?" "What it feels like to be judged by where you live, to have people look down on you." Her hands trembled. "Yesterday, I couldn't get a reservation at a restaurant I've been going to for 20 years because of my new address." "It feels awful, doesn't it?" I said quietly. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I've been horrible, not just to you, but to so many people, living here, being treated the way I treated others. It's opened my eyes." "That was the point," I said gently. She blinked in surprise. "This wasn't just revenge?" "Revenge would have been making you homeless. This was about education." Patricia sank onto the small sofa. "I've lost everything, my home, my social standing, my son." "You haven't lost James," I corrected. "He's finally choosing to be his own man. Whether you lose him permanently depends on whether you can accept that change." "And you?" she asked hesitantly. Have I lost you as a daughter-in-law? I studied her carefully. That depends on you, too, Patricia. Real change takes time, more than a few weeks of humility. Will you help me? She asked softly. I don't mean financially. I mean, help me learn to be better. For the first time, I heard genuine sincerity in her voice. 6 months later, I hosted a dinner party. Patricia was there, wearing a simple dress instead of her usual designer labels. She even helped in the kitchen, not because anyone asked her to, but because she wanted to. Amanda came, too, having started volunteering at a women's shelter as part of an agreement I made when she asked to rent one of my properties. James and I were rebuilding our marriage, one day at a time. He had proven his commitment through consistent actions rather than grand gestures. As we sat down to dinner, my parents were deep in conversation with James about the financial literacy program, which had expanded to 3 more community centers. My mother and Patricia exchanged recipes, the barriers between them now gone. Emma, Patricia said during dessert, her voice steady. Thank you. For what? I asked. For teaching me that true worth isn't about where you live or what you own. It's about how you treat people. She smiled, a touch of humility in her expression. I just wish I'd learned that lesson sooner. Later that night, as James and I stood on the balcony overlooking the neighborhood, he asked, "Do you regret any of it?" I thought about the past year, the pain, the growth, the transformations. No, I said finally. Sometimes people need to lose everything to understand what really matters. He took my hand, and we stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. The basement apartment where Patricia now lived was visible from our vantage point, its lights glowing warmly in the night. It served as a quiet reminder that sometimes, the greatest gift you can give someone is the chance to change. My phone buzzed with a message from my investment team about another successful algorithm deployment. For once, I didn't check it right away. Some things were more valuable than money, and now, I was finally surrounded by people who understood that truth.